Well, hello everyone. This is Dr. Joe Martin once again for the Warrior Mindset Podcast. Today I got a special guest, a real good friend of mine, young buck along the way. I'm the old guy doing the interviewing today. But we have Alec Trujillo, who is a Division I, basically a Division I football player, out of high school, continued on in his career trying to, make it to the big leagues. But today we're going to sit down and talk to him a little bit about the concept behind our podcast, which is that warrior mindset, what he has and how as a young guy along the way is trying to build, brick and mortar his life to become a successful, obviously, hopefully at the end, a professional, football player. So without further ado, Alec, give you a little handshake.
Yep.
Glad to have you here today.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so just to let some of the people know a little bit of our background, you and I kind of know each other through the office, the chiropractic office, and the Doc's Gym, the facility that I own. Your girlfriend is working at our office a little bit with her mom, and you and I just kind of became friends over the last couple of years, probably right out of high school. Yeah. For the most part, we got introduced to each other. And I've been real fortunate to, follow your career and the peaks and valleys. And believe me, the podcast name is the Warrior Mindset. And I don't care what anybody tells you. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Trying to nowadays getting into the professional sports, it's just a grind, isn't it?
For sure. I mean, I wouldn't even say just professional sports, even just collegiate sports at that. It definitely takes a lot of work and effort, obviously, just like anything else you want to be good at in life. Whatever you want to be good at, you got to put in the work for it.
Did you play, was it football from the get-go? Did you play other sports when you were a little kid too?
Yeah. So actually, one of my biggest sports I did when I was younger, I started when I was 4 years old. I was actually a wrestler.
Oh, no way.
I actually won state for wrestling in 2011 for freestyle.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, how old were you then?
I was 2011. Let me see. What am I at right now?
Got to do the math. Right now.
22 right now.
So, 11, 12 years old?
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range?
Yeah.
Wow. So like that mindset, that mentality, especially wrestling is no joke, for that warrior mindset. I mean, did you have that, we'll use the term lightly, that killer instinct? Did you like the wrestling? Did you like the aggressiveness behind it?
At first I was kind of put into it because of my dad. Like, he was just one of those hardcore dads, you know what I mean? And he was like, you're going to wrestle, you know what I mean? He's like, you guys are going to do something. Mm-hmm. And so that was really my first sport I was introduced to, and ended up being really good at it. So I just kind of stuck with it up until about freshman year of high school. And then once that happened, I ended up just sticking with football, because of cutting weight and everything like that. And being an undersized quarterback already, being 5'11", I couldn't keep cutting weight and everything. I had to gain the weight. Right. Stuff like that. So, that's really when I
And was it mainly football and wrestling?
No. I played baseball as well for a little while, from about elementary school all throughout middle school. And then I ran track a little bit as well. And then for a short while there, I did boxing as well.
Nice.
Didn't have a ton of transportation back and forth.
Mm-hmm. So it's hard to get there.
So it was hard to get to the practices and everything. So so I just I ended up just sticking with football after that.
And you have an older brother that played ball too, right?
Yeah.
High school, a little bit of college too?
Yeah.
So you kind of follow his footsteps a little bit, do you think? Or?
For sure, yeah. So like I said, I wrestled, but after wrestling, my first sport outside of that I was really introduced to was baseball. Me and my dad would go to the park all the time, and practice all the time. And then my older brother's like, why don't you play football? And I'm like, what's football? I had no idea.
Yeah.
And so he kind of got me into it. He actually played quarterback. And he got me into it, and then he played JUCO and everything like that. And now he's actually coaching at Stephen F. Austin, SFA.
Texas?
Nacogdoches, Texas.
Texas. And what's his forte over there? What is he coaching?
Yeah, so he helps out with quarterbacks. And then I think he's I want to say quality control. Mm-hmm. Head of quality control, I believe. So he's doing that in quarterbacks.
What, like, from your background, obviously, your dad obviously is taking you out to the ball fields and this and that, seemed like a pretty big part of it. And do you think he was one of the bigger parts of that kind of got you set into the athleticism of where you are now?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because, dude, there would be days it was porn or whatever it was, or I just didn't feel like it at the time, whatever. And he was like, let's go, for those of you who didn't know, I grew up in a small town called Exeter. Right in about an hour south from Fresno, right in the middle of the Central Valley. And there's this place called Rocky Hill. So it's just a hill that overlooks the entire city. And basically he would always, make me go and run the hill with him and all this stuff. And even, I remember even before like I was old enough to really start doing it, he would always like have me on his shoulders and he'd be running up it and that type of thing. So I kind of got.
And would your brother be involved with that too?
Yeah.
Your older brother then?
Yeah. So definitely every time we were training, it was always him, me, and my older brother.
What's the age difference between you and your brother?
He's exactly 5 years older than me.
Oh, so 5 years older. Like, it is a big difference, like at certain levels. So if you're 5, he's 10. That's a huge difference.
For sure.
At 10 and 15 are a huge difference too. So, and was that a pretty good, relationship with you and your brother?
Yeah,
that 5-year difference?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like exactly 5 years. Like we share our birthday. Mm-hmm. Like I was born on his 5th birthday and everything, which is crazy. But no, we're super, super close, super tight knit. We had a lot of, struggles growing up and everything like that.
Everybody's got those
for sure,
closets, skeletons.
But it made, me and all my siblings a lot closer to one another for sure.
So, and obviously the podcast, we call it the warrior mindset. That mentality that you have is, as a warrior. Everybody has that inside. It just depends on when, where, and how, it gets pulled out in their life, from those, tumultuous times. And listen, we all have, the skeletons in our closet. And listen, you don't cry over spilt milk. You just kind of keep going. If you have that mentality, right? If you have that warrior mentality. And this was one of the reasons why, I thought it was really cool for me to invite you on this show because, the age difference, obviously between you and I is huge. But I grew up in a different time, and it was when, you got to get out of the house. Mm-hmm. Your parents tell you don't, a couple of different people I've interviewed along the way that are from a different generation. It's like, don't come back till the lights go on. Do you feel that, even as a young guy right now, that it seemed like your dad was one of those things where you felt like you weren't sitting home watching, playing video games, or you're out and about most of the time as a kid? For
sure, yeah, all the time actually. It was, me, my older brother, all my cousins, all my older guy cousins, they're around his age as well. Like I still remember to this day, we would always stay at my grandma's house. Basically, we would play football in the street until we couldn't see the ball anymore, Once we couldn't see the ball anymore, that's when you knew it was time to get inside.
Head in the house,
Exactly, yeah. So we'd do that all the time, and we kind of, we'd get into trouble here and there at my grandma's house, and outside of my grandma's house, a bunch of crazy stories. But so no, we were always out and about, like just finding different stuff to do.
Were you? So you're just, kind of getting into the conversation here. You had an older brother, 5 years older, and then you said, "Oh yeah, we used to hang out with my cousins a little bit older too." Were you usually the younger one?
Yeah. I was just following him around everywhere.
Yeah.
And, my dad was like, take your brother with you. You know what I mean? So he's like, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
So I'm the little kid, seeing all these older guys, but I also think that helped me out in the long run, like with football and everything like that.
Because I was so tougher.
Exactly. I was toughened up because of it, getting pushed down in the street and everything.
Yeah.
And then also, I guess just the skill level of playing against older guys. Mm-hmm. By the time I was playing tackle football with kids my age, it was like, this is
easier, right?
Is way easier, exactly. Yeah.
Even though you're like, obviously, gee whiz, some of these quarterbacks nowadays, in the NFL are just, 6'5", whatever the case may be.
For sure.
But do you think that with your size now, 5'11", 6 foot, 190 pounds, give or take, a couple pounds here and there, do you think that grit, that little bit of armor that you put on yourself, because of your brothers and cousins and their friends, that it made you a little bit tougher for your size?
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I wouldn't even say it was just that, but just all the family stuff we went through, growing up in an abusive household and stuff like that. It kind of forces you to grow up fast. Mm-hmm. And, if you're able to kind of deal with all that, then, what's getting hit by somebody going to do? You know what I mean? Like, okay, I got smacked by this guy in a football game. Like, you know, that's nothing compared to what I've had to go through. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, and those are the things that are a little bit tougher for people. You know, these trials and tribulations that people go through. The times when mentally things are sometimes tougher than physically.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And you get knocked down mentally, and you're able to get up. Some of the physical activities are like nothing.
Yeah.
You know, for a guy like you that has had some of those problems along the way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it all starts with your mental. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't have your mental right, then you're not going to be able to accomplish much. Right. You know what I mean? You know, they always say mind over matter. You know, and I truly believe that. You know, there's so like I'm always in my Bible and everything like that. Super into my faith. And you know, there's a story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and you know, basically Nebuchadnezzar, he was the king at the time. You know, he was telling them that they gotta worship this God when they hear this music come on, and basically they were like, no, straight up, we're not doing that. And he was like, all right, well, if you don't, then I'm gonna throw you into this blazing furnace. And they were like, all right, by all means, go ahead. Whether our God saves us or not, even if He didn't save us, then we're still not going to worship your God. You know what I mean? We have our own God. We're worshiping Him, everything like that. And sure enough, they get thrown into the blazing furnace. They're in the fire, and God ends up protecting them. And King Nebuchadnezzar, he ends up seeing another shadow in there. And they come out of that blazing furnace like. They were actually dancing in the furnace. Right. And it's like just to have that even if faith and being able to, withstand the fire, just having that faith in Him and being able to do that, like, could get you through a ton. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I live my life now. Well,
and you brought up some really good points, because a lot of times if you just want to look into life itself, we're all thrown in the fire periodically throughout our life. With different things that do go on, whether it's physical or mental. I think, as a D1 level athlete, man, you're tossing the fire all day long, mentally and physically. We are in the valley here, and in the summertime, springtime, summertime, it gets hot as heck, and that's, physically the fire, with that and kind of, overcoming that. But then the mental aspect of it, even that you mentioned from a biblical point of view, the mental aspect, can you get through this day? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? With your sport, what I mean? Is that armor on you? Are you able to protect yourself mentally and physically along the way?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of different stuff I've gone through, obviously. And, I'll share a story actually. So out of high school, I got a scholarship to San Jose State, ended up going there, was back up my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, the following year, which was 2020, the COVID year, basically they ended up bringing a transfer in and everything like that. And I was like, okay, I'll compete it out. Ultimately ended up, losing or not getting the starting job. Right. I was like, all right, let's see how the season goes and everything like that. And the whole COVID thing happened. And ultimately, because of the whole COVID thing and quarantining, they told me I could go back to my family's house and quarantine there and everything. But because I was over there, my quarantine got extended. So ultimately I ended up missing 6 weeks of the season. Right. And it was just at that time I was just down, depressed, it sucked. It was terrible. Did you get a
red shirt on that? Oh no, because of COVID, the COVID gave you time back again.
Yeah, check. Yeah. Gotcha. So that happened and I was just like, dang, this sucks. And, I really wanted to play and everything like that. So I ended up transferring out, actually landed at a JUCO over in Iowa Central.
That's right.
And, found my love for football again and everything like that. It was super cool. Just got named the starter. As soon as I got named the starter, the game's going really well. 3 for 3 incompletions with the touchdown pass. And this is awesome. You know what I mean? And the very next play, I ended up breaking my foot. That's missed the rest of the season.
Okay, wait a minute. I can't remember, but you got to tell the audience. Was it one of your players that backed up on you, or was it an opposing player?
No. It was an opposing player. Okay. Yeah, it was an opposing player.
Thank God for that. Yeah. Can't blame it on your team.
Yeah, no. It was an opposing player.
So then you got medical for that season.
So I got a medical redshirt, but even after that, it was like, dang, I just got football back, and now this happens.
Because you had 2 pins put in, correct?
I had 3 pins put in. 3 pins put in. Yeah.
So it's not just a little crack and you put a cast on.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah, because I broke 3 different bones in my foot. So I was like, dang, you know, I was questioning God, like, dang, God, like I just got football back. You know what I mean? Like what is it? You know what I mean? And just tried to have like that even if faith, you know, that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had. It's like, you know, even if this didn't work out, it's all good. You know, I know God's got me, like, you know, and it's harder than it sounds, obviously, you know, and just going through all that. And ultimately, I ended up connecting with Coach Tedford at Fresno State. And, you know, he allowed me to walk on over here, which I was super grateful for.
Yeah, and they made the squad too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Just because you walk on doesn't mean you made it.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I was definitely super fortunate for that. And you know, everybody sees all those things as like so negative, you know what I mean? Which it definitely sucked at the time, like anything else. But it's like if it weren't for all that, for the COVID year, for missing the 6 weeks, for, you know, redshirting my first year, for breaking my foot, like I wouldn't have 3 years of eligibility right now. You know what I mean? And
yeah, it would have been out of the system as far as, you know, being able to play.
Exactly. So now that I have 3 years of eligibility, like, you know, I'm definitely fortunate to have that. And it's like, even now, you know, I'm leaving Fresno State, and it's like, it's crazy. Like I wouldn't be able to. So I'm actually going back to a JUCO to De Anza over in Cupertino. And it's like I wouldn't have even had that opportunity if it weren't for everything that happened.
Right.
And yeah, so it's just crazy, and the way it all works out. And it's like, you know, there's 2 verses I really like to remember, which my favorite one is Romans 8:28. You know, it says, God works all things together for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. And in that, he kind of emphasizes all things, whether it's good or bad, he'll work it out for your good, right? Because all that stuff happened, and, you know, now I'm at where I'm at, which I'm grateful for. Even like in anybody's life, you know, I'm sure you could think of terrible things you've gone through, and there's something that's made you into the person that you are today, you know, which I'm sure you're absolutely grateful for.
Oh, yeah.
And like everybody has that thing, and even though they may not see it at the time, like what good is going to come out of this, like, you know, God's going to see it through, and something good will come out of, you know, that. And then the other verse is, you know, what the enemy intends for evil, God can use for good. And, you know, it's huge. Like,
and enemy itself, like, you know, say, for example, an injury.
Yeah.
Know, because it doesn't have to be an individual, you know, it can be a situation. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That, you know, because you can have an enemy that fires a round. Well, the round's the one that's going to kill you or injure you. It's not the guy himself. It's the guy pulling the trigger. So, you know, it's some of these things, you know, we're living on this earth, you know, which is the battlefield.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of, you know, my mindset too. I, you know, grew up as the Irish Catholic guy in New York, and as the altar boy, and all that type of stuff, catechism and whatnot. So like yourself, which is kind of cool to have you, you know, on this show, is, you know, I got a lot of, you know, great faith and foundation in myself. And it's, you know, that battlefield that we hit every day, you know, and that's why this podcast that we're putting on is I want to meet people that are, you know, in this battle all day long, you know, whether or not they believe in a religious aspect of it, or, you know, from a worldly aspect, you know, they're grinding every day. You know, they're putting on that armor every day. You know, you have that warrior mindset, and the mindset, you know, I'm looking for, you know, that foundation. You know, are you grounded in your belief and as you're, you know, going forward? You know, and one of the things I really enjoy, and we're going to continue with this conversation, is a guy like you, because, you know, the younger generation, and you can kind of speak to this a little bit, is a little bit softer. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't think they're sitting on, no pun intended, we're talking about a lot of sports and football. They're kind of sitting on the sidelines in life. You know, they're not throwing on that armor. They're not using their mind. So it's like, you know, where do you feel that you're kind of different, you know, if you can speak to it, you know, why you think that, you know, your mindset is so strong, and is it in your faith, or is it in your parents, you know, your dad giving you the upbringing, your brother? Like, where do you think that you're so different, which I do. I think you're a lot different than, you know, some of the people, you know, from 20 to 30 right now.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, I would say the thing that helps me stand out, I guess, is one, my faith, definitely, you know, my faith in God, and two, my upbringing, you know, being in an abusive household, and, you know, my mom leaving when I was younger, you know, just kind of forced me, I guess, to grow up faster.
Yeah.
And, just going through all of that. It's like, it's a lot of people hit rock bottom, you know what I mean? And a lot of people feel like, they feel like crap when they hit rock bottom, you know what I mean? But rock bottom, that's what you build on.
It's funny you say that.
It's the foundation.
Exactly. And the rock bottom, that's a good thing.
Exactly.
Right? Because you're still not falling.
Exactly.
Like if you're in quicksand and there is no bottom, you're always flailing.
Exactly.
You need somebody, for the most part, or you need somebody around that quicksand. You need to look for that rope. You need to look for that ladder. You need to have somebody be able to help you. Mm-hmm. But when you do hit rock bottom, like you said, then there's only one way to go.
Yep. Exactly. Up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So so you think your that rock bottom foundation is that what you kind of like when as they say the proverbial shit hits the fan, is that where you go back to yourself personally, like to this
Yeah, I mean it's like you just think of everything you've been through and just seeing where I'm at now, and it's like nothing's gonna be perfect along the way. It's not just straight uphill. You know what I mean? It's like a roller coaster. You're going up and down. There's gonna be highs and lows. But that's why, like, if you have, like, for me personally, right, that's why I have my identity in God.
Yeah.
Because, He's a stronghold. He's a rock. He never changes.
Foundation.
He's my foundation, right? Like, if I have my identity in Him, then, it's consistent. But if I have my identity in the world and the problems I'm going through, and this and that, then, I'm going to be up and down all the time. You know what I mean? And I'm going to be just a mess, emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because I think to myself sometimes, when you're talking about, playing D1 ball and getting dusted off after big 6 foot whatever guy, 200-300 pound guy knocks you over, and you're like, oh man, this is okay. I can handle this. I remember my brother 5 years younger, and my cousins whatever knocking me down, on the concrete with no equipment on.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I have the same mentality a lot of times when those days are rough, and it can be physically, mentally, business, family, whatever. And, I always go back to tell myself to go to that area of rock bottom. And really, it's actually a positive place. It can be. Because when you hit that rock bottom, you go, man, I got everything. I'm going to, get my bandwidth together. I'm going to get my whereabouts together, and I'm going to build myself back up. From you, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you have, I go back to the courtyard, the cul-de-sac, and you're playing football.
Right.
So if you get knocked down, you get your bell rung, you're going to get back up and you go, no, homie, that ain't, that's nothing like my brother used to hit me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I mean, definitely that's a part of it for sure.
And I do the same thing. Like if we have one of those days, when nothing is worse than Hell Week when I was in Buds. Nothing. Right. So when I tell myself, oh my God, I'm having a bad day and this and that, I mean, just slough it off, and there's nothing worse than Hell Week. And in your case, that was my granite. That's the rock bottom. That's where they teach you. They break you down. And when you're in Hell Week, either you're going to quit or you're going to, most likely you're going to make it.
For sure.
But that's that granite. So in life, we do definitely trickle back down occasionally. Like you said, nothing's straight up.
Right.
You do ebb and flow along the way. When you do hit that rock bottom again, you go, oh man, here I am again.
Yeah.
But that's okay because you're solid. You know what I mean?
For sure.
You get knocked down, you get that foot broken, you're like, that's okay.
For sure.
It's nothing worse than my brother didn't hand me.
For sure, yeah, which is a part of it. But like I would say my rock bottom was, my dad raising us on his own. Mm-hmm. He needed help from my grandma here and there. It was like he was going to school full time and he had a full time job while trying to raise, 4 kids.
Yeah.
And it was like, that
dude
is
was
tough.
wearing some armor.
I mean? Exactly. Like,
that mindset.
He was grinding, you know what I mean?
What did your dad do? What did he?
He actually works at a hospital now. Yeah,
check. But when you were growing up as a kid?
Yeah. Actually, growing up as a kid, he did the same. He was actually a registered nurse.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. So, but same thing. It's like
that's a grind, man. I tell you what, hats off to those people, man.
For sure. Oof. He was leaving early in the morning, getting back late at night, and it was like.
And your grandma, helped out.
Yeah, for sure.
Getting back and forth to school and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I would say she actually helped us all like get into our faith as well. So, every morning. So she doesn't speak any English. She only speaks Spanish. Yeah. But every morning, we'd have to read out a little Mexican Bible that she had, the Spanish Bible. And, on our way to school, we'd have to walk around the block to like catch the bus to go to school.
Right.
And the whole way there, we're saying prayers in Spanish with her and everything like that.
Because she'd make you memorize it by the time you got home. She'd be like, did you remember that?
Exactly. Yeah. But, no, my rock bottom was definitely, growing up in an abusive household, my mom leaving, my dad raising us on his own, doing everything he had to do. And it's like, it kind of gave me hope. It's like, okay, if he could do that, then what can't I do?
Yeah, and that's we all have those type of people, that you and I talk about this when I interview the people that were coming on the podcast, is that other individuals in your life that you can say, this person steered me in a direction. So the way I explain to a lot of people in life, right? We're going down a road, and there's many forks in a road, right? You can't go back once you make a right. You can't go back once you make a left, or you can't go back once you go straight ahead. Right. And then there's many times on our freeway in our life, that we go off to the side of the dirt. Then we go off to the side of the dirt here. Right. But for the most part, if we go straight away, we're going to be fairly successful. But we all go through turns in our life. And you're super young now, but I could give you like some of my history. I said, yeah, man, I got out of the military. That was a direction.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go back because I'm going forward. Right now, you're still a young guy. Do you feel like your dad and your grandma are people that were kind of tweaking you to tell you, okay, we're going to go this direction here? Do you feel it, like, who directed you to say, okay, I'm gonna play football for high school? Was that your dad, brother type of influence?
Yeah, I would say that was definitely my dad and my brother's influence, like, since I was younger. As soon as I got into it, I ended up being really good at it. And, so obviously I stuck with it, and I saw how it brought a ton of the family together and everything, which, gave me joy. And I was like, this is super cool. They're all coming together just because I'm over here playing a sport with the ball. You know what I mean? Like, and so for that happening, it was like, I was super grateful for it, and that's kind of why I stuck with it. And obviously I ended up falling in love with it and, sticking it out. And it's like, God didn't give me that talent not to use it, which, that actually... I had to remember that, not too long ago, after this past season at Fresno State. I'm like, I wasn't playing and everything like that. And I was like, dang, like, this sucks. Am I even supposed to be playing football anymore? And it makes you question yourself and your ability and everything like that. And, and then, my older brother sat me down with one of his friends, and they're like, look, like, God gave you all this talent for a reason. He didn't give you it all just so you could throw it away. You know what I mean? That's when it really hit me. I'm like, you know what, like, you're right. I always tell, teammates and stuff in the fourth quarter, say we're down, or even not if we're down, even if, someone makes a good play on the other team, they score. And I'm like, okay, are you guys going to sit there and cry about it, or are you going to respond?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's the same way in life. You know what I mean? Take time to evaluate yourself, take time to, gain insight from other people. But at the end of the day, you have to respond. You can't just sit there, self-loathing the entire time.
Yeah, that's really good, because as you get older, so say, for example, 19, 20 years old, you were having that point in your life where you're like, man, or it could have been this end of the season, this present season.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying to yourself, am I worthy? Should I still be playing? And then you got sat down, by, your brother, say, for example, and one of your buddies. As you go on with life, and these are these things that I talk to a lot of people about from that warrior mindset, so I got you by a couple layers of years along the way. And around that same time frame, say 20 years old, I'm in buds in the SEAL team training, and I'm ready to quit. And, anybody that listens to this podcast, former team guys, and this is, back a lot of years, but this guy, his name was John Hall.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the first phase, he was an instructor, and I was ready to quit. I was just ready to quit. It was too cold. It was, blah, 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 whatever the reasons are. And this guy, John Hall said, listen, Joe, you get a lot of respect from your team, this and that, blah, blah, blah. We think you can, I think, this is a guy. And
right.
When you get an instructor mostly hammering you, and this guy sees what you've done in a small period of time before Hell Week, and the guy goes, I think you can do this. A guy like that changed my life, because then from there on, never had the thought ever in my life again to want to quit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that would have been a crossroad technically,
for
right?
Sure.
And you could go right and quit, and God knows what my life would have been like.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, you had a guy like, John Hall, who influenced me, they gave me that, that lift, put me on his shoulders, if you will, and said, no, man, I think you can become a very successful person and finish this program.
Yeah.
So these are things kind of almost like insights in your life as you get older, is there's going to be times in your life, and remember, this kind of little podcast to be where, you're going to go, oh man, Doc was talking about, my brother and relative, his friend, your brother and your friend, you're going to remember that because that's going to be a crossroad now. And then some things go on in your life, and there's going to be another crossroad, whether it's getting married, whether it's having kids, whether it's in a business. And it's always those little lines that go along the way that you can always step back. You go, man, I could have gone right, but then I went left.
For sure.
And look where my career has gone so far. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So having a brother like that is, and obviously a dad too, huge foundation, in your life, as that warrior mindset that's building within you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, when you have that one person who believes in you, you know what I mean? It's like, dang, you know what I mean? Like, they could say all they want, or anybody could say all they want, about how much they believe in you or what they think you should do. But, it takes the belief in yourself. That's the next step. It's like, you could hear all these outside voices saying stuff, but, until you make that step for yourself, until you believe in yourself, then, nothing's going to change. You know what I mean?
And it's funny because, you have that big religious faith, and so do I. And, you get to yourself, and that, obviously the ultimate warrior, as Jesus came down to this earth, right?
For sure.
And, he's fighting for you and me,
mm-hmm.
right? So it's like, man, if you're going to take a direction in your life with the fork in the road, he'd probably be a good bet.
Right.
I think if you're going to follow somebody, somebody's going to give you some advice, you better kind of listen to it. Let's see, should I go right or should I go left?
For sure.
What does he say? I'm going to follow his directions.
For sure, yeah. And everything from him, people don't always understand, but everything from him is clear. You know what I mean? His direction is always clear. It never makes you question yourself or anything like that. But it's just up to you to take the steps, like I said. And, you always, like we were talking about earlier, always having someone who believes in you, you know what I mean? During that time, when God sent out all his disciples, was like, go make disciples of all nations.
Right.
He sent them out in twos because he knew we couldn't, do it on our own. He knew we couldn't do it by ourselves. You know what I mean? When everybody knows the creation story, right? He created Adam, but he didn't just create Adam. He also created Eve.
Right.
Because he knew we all couldn't, do the thing on our own. You know what I mean? We always need somebody to lean on, regardless of who it is. And that's why I'm actually super grateful I came back to Fresno, regardless of how everything worked out at the time. I didn't know what I was going to do after Iowa Central. I was like, dang, man, I broke my foot. I don't have any coaches looking at me right now. Like, what's going to happen? But so I reached out to Coach Tedford because Fresno State actually pulled my offer in high school.
Was he the head coach at the time?
He was the head coach at the time.
He was at the time.
Which, sucked, right? I was like, dang, that's the hometown school, I wanted to play there, that type of thing. But it's like, I didn't burn that bridge or anything. I was like, okay, I get it. You guys
didn't MNF him and anything like that,
exactly.
Get on a podcast like this and just
right, exactly. But it ended up, God ended up working all things together for the good, mm-hmm. right? Like I said earlier. And eventually, I was able to get back in contact with them, and was fortunate enough to finally be at Fresno State. And it's just like you never know how everything's gonna work out. But yeah, like I was saying, you just always need somebody to lean on. And if I didn't come back to Fresno State, then, I wouldn't have gotten involved in, the youth ministry and everything like that. I wouldn't have, gotten so many close friends because me and my girlfriend Amadis, we were actually, we were praying about it. Obviously, we have friends here and there, but like we don't have any like edifying friends,
right.
that build us up in our faith and everything like that. And so that's just something we were both praying over, like not only for each other, but for ourselves. And which we actually didn't find out until later on, which is crazy. And
is it through the university, or is this a small church?
It's a small church. So it started through university. Actually, one of my good friends, Cam Lamanuzzi, I met him through FCA at Fresno State.
Oh, right.
Yeah. He was the team chaplain, and we got connected. We did FCA, we did Bible studies and stuff like that. And he invited me over to the garage church, and
But before you go any further, the FCA, what does that stand for some of the people that don't know what that is?
So FCA is Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Yeah. High school and college, right?
Yeah, high school and college, exactly. And they'll do some events for elementary and things like that as well, which is awesome. But yeah, so I kind of got a lot closer to God and just more in tune with my faith, all because I came, back to Fresno, all because, that bumpy path I was going, everything that went down, it all got me to this point, which I'm super grateful for. I wouldn't be as close as I am to God right now, and in tune with my faith, and even with my family. My family's only an hour away, so I'm able to go see them kind of whenever I want to. And then obviously around Almaris and her family, I'm around all of them, and even meeting you and being on this podcast wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have came back to Fresno State.
Right.
So it's just like, they
say God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he does, I think you're super fortunate, especially as a young guy, to have that foundation that you do. First of all, from a family point of view, you've bricked and mortared, built up that foundation, with your dad, your brother, the rest of your family. And, especially in your faith that, builds you up even more, and which, when things do hit the fan, you step back and you go, man, it's still not that bad. You know what I mean? God's got other plans for me.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
And whatnot too. So where do you feel that, like with your faith, that it kind of exudes throughout your players, like throughout the teams?
For sure. Yeah. I would say, it's always super cool to be able to share it with somebody else. And they're like this. Like one of my friends, Sonny, he goes to Fresno State, one of my teammates over there. And, I invited him over to FCA. It was every Monday night at 7. And, we always got food. There was always food there. And
especially at any type of athletic function.
Exactly. So I was like,
and God provides
the
food.
I'm like, hey, Sonny, like you should come through to FCA. You know what I mean? Like, I think it'd be super cool. He's like, I don't know. I'll see. And I'm like, there's food there. Like we're having Chick-fil-A tonight. And he was like, okay, yeah, I'll go. Sure enough, he goes for the food, you know what I mean? And that night at FCA, he ends up, getting saved and gives his life to Christ. And, now he's going to church every Sunday at the garage, and, he's involved in a bunch of different stuff.
What a great name for a church, right?
Yeah. So
we do oil changes there too.
So behind that, the name actually came from that. So that church started actually in a garage.
Oh, see, that's great.
Yeah, so that's why they called it the garage, and then it just grew within the past year. They were able to move into a building, and
still kept the name.
Yeah, kept the name, and
got a sliding glass door on the side of the building just to make sure it gives it remnants of garage.
Yeah, it's a small building, a little bigger than this room, but
jam a bunch of people in there.
Yeah, no, it's cool, but it's cool to see, just how God works and how He can move through different people. It started with Sonny getting Chick-fil-A at the FCA, and then he heard a message that really touched him, and from then on just kind of gave his life to Christ. You know what I mean? It was cool.
And, it's kind of interesting because, like I grew up in obviously a little bit different era, a lot older. Like I said, the East Coast Irish Catholic type of deal in the faith, and I've had that, as a great foundation granted for me in my life. But it's kind of interesting to see with the way, I guess we use the word, the woke society and whatnot. And it's kind of refreshing for me, as an older guy, to see, a young buck like you, an athlete, and super grounded in his faith. Do you sometimes think to yourself, if the athleticism, the road ends, and we talked about this off mic before. You talk about a marathon runner. Right now, you're grinding, dude. You're grinding, and let's see, we did. San Jose State, we did in Iowa, we did Fresno State. Now we're going back to JUCO. I mean, there's a grind, man. There's a grind, bro. That's a grind, right? And but it's still a marathon,
for
right?
Sure.
You haven't crossed the finish line. Say, for example, you cross the finish line, and then football, you're timed out, right? There's nowhere else to go. Right? You say, hey, listen, I did the best I could, man. I had a great run. I crossed the finish line. Not at the right time. The amount of time that I would like, I would have liked to have a faster time if I was running that marathon. Listen, I would have liked to get to the NFL. I kind of see, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a great foundation you have in your faith. do you think that would carry you on to other things in your life in the future if football's not it?
Yeah, no, it definitely could. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, I got offered a job at FCA as soon as I'm done graduating. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if I'll take it or not.
Yeah, of course.
Never know what's going to happen. But yeah, it definitely could be something I consider. I love spreading His word and just telling people how much He loves them. You know what I mean? And
well, it's funny because you think to yourself too. Is like we talk about our body is our temple, right? And our body is our temple, and here you are working with a bunch of young guys along the way. You're in the gym. I own the gym, right on the other side of this building here, and myself too as an older guy trying to keep that foundation, that the pillar and what do you call it, my temple, if you will, strong too, because we don't want to be using alcohol, abusing drugs and things like that. It just doesn't make your temple as strong as it should be, and God doesn't look really favorable on that. You're a guy that stays in shape. The temple is strong. There's that foundation right there. Do you think that could be something in your future to where, as an athletic guy with the foundation that you have from playing college sports, that would bode well, in your future, within, say, from a Christ point of view?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I never know what He has in store for me, but I know, in this part of my life, I'm supposed to be playing football. Amen. And, spreading His word, doing that, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Being able to inspire others through that. And it's, a lot of people, they get done, like, for me, I used to think football was it, right? Like, that's the thing, like, but there's so much more to life than just football, you know what I mean? And that's for everybody. They all have that one thing that they're really good at or really passionate about, which they should definitely do if they can, you know what I mean? And, once, like for me, football's not forever, like you said earlier, you got to hang the cleats up at some point.
Check.
But your purpose doesn't stop after that. Like, your purpose is carried out until the day you die. You know what I mean? Like, that's when your purpose is over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you're on this earth, you're still on this earth for a reason. God still has a mission for you. He still has a purpose for you.
Well, what? This year's going to be, 63 years old. I could be one of those guys that sits back and goes, "Hey, man, you're going to retire now, Doc, man. You had, X many years, former team guy, military, you own a gym." Oh, man, this podcast is something that's always been something on my mind. I have that, we all have that warrior mindset. Obviously, I got a great foundation as a former SEAL team guy, from that foundation, but I'm always building upon that, and it's kind of refreshing to see a young guy like you, telling yourself, "Oh no, man, I got ways to go." And one of those layers of your foundation, part of that mortar of each brick that you put on your life, has been college football. You know what I mean? And the people that you've met along the way. I'm still trying to, hopefully you'll follow in my footsteps by never stopping what you're doing and figure something else out.
Right.
We were talking about, interviewing and doing a podcast. And as a young guy like yourself, it may not be able to, with this type of concept we're talking about right now, because you haven't experienced a ton of stuff. I've been fortunate where people go, "Oh my God, you're 60 years old and you're starting a podcast." Yeah, but I've met a ton of people. And the idea behind this podcast is that warrior mindset. You know what I mean? I want to know what makes people tick. I want to know what made them successful. But also, too, is I got a young guy on here that I want people to hear and listen to, because you get this monster foundation in your faith. You got this great family, dynamics that you had, that your dad, helped, develop you for who you are. You got a brother, 5 years older that's, kicked you around a little bit, made you tough as nails, and probably at some point, he had some big old armor that threw on you and said, "This is what you're going to be like when you grow up." You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, you get the example of, how you should be and what you should do. And, there's some people that may get the example of, how they shouldn't be and what they shouldn't do. You know what I mean? Kind of how you said earlier, there's that crossroads, right? You could go right or you could go left. You know what I mean? And It's up to you to choose the right one.
And there's many times, believe me, so at 22 years old, and where I'm in the 60s, believe me, I'll just let you know, hopefully not, give you some recommendations. Think a little bit before you make each crossroad.
Right.
Because what will happen sometimes, you'll make a crossroad and it'll be a monster mistake. But you got to keep going. You got to figure it out because at some point there, you're going to go, oh, God, please get me to another crossroad because I need to get off this street.
Right.
You know what I mean? I need to get off this freeway because there's many. Every day, every month, every year, there's different crossroads along the way. So as long as you have that foundation, which you do, you're a firm believer, and myself too, in Christ, the fact that when you do get to the crossroads, you sometimes make your own decision.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes you don't make the right decision because you didn't, consult.
Yeah.
With the big man upstairs.
Exactly.
And he goes, okay, bro.
Yeah.
I'm still going to be there for you, but you got to be on this road for a little while.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And that kind of goes back to that verse I was talking about, Romans 8:28, right? God works all things together for the good, right? And you may choose, the wrong path or whatever, but God's out here playing 4D chess with everybody, right? He's going to make it work out for you regardless of what you've gone through.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to work out whatever you've gone through. I haven't always made the right decisions for sure, and I'm sure you haven't, right? Yeah. I'm sure a ton of people listening haven't.
And I'm sure you will, just hopefully less.
Right, for sure. But it's like, there's this verse that says, he says, my power is perfected in weakness, right? And
right. The weaker we are as individuals, the stronger he is for us.
Exactly. He's able to work through that.
Yeah.
And, so when you lean on him, like I was talking about earlier, and, keep my identity in him, he's going to see you through whatever it is that you're going through. And, you're going to come out on top. What I mean? It may not always feel like it.
Yeah.
But you will. You're alive. You have another day of life. You woke up today, and, that means you still have a purpose in your life.
We use, it's funny you say that, you still wake up the next day. There's, so a little bit of backstory real quick. When you get done with Hell Week in SEAL Team in Buds, the class that you're in, you design a T-shirt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And one of the ones that is kind of held for years and years, even before I was in the class in the 90s, I think it was. And it's kind of been the motto for, the SEAL Team, at least for, Buds training. And the concept is the only easy day was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And it's, that follows with me every day. So if you have a bad day today, don't worry. Tomorrow's coming.
For sure.
You're going to forget about yesterday.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Because it was easy. Now, when you're going through it, it's tough.
Yeah.
But you wake up, you just said you get up every morning and you put on your big boy panties. You pick up your bootstraps. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And you get it going and you go, yesterday? Yeah, it was kind of tough, but, we got through it.
Yeah.
Because guess what comes tomorrow? Some more shit.
An opportunity for something better, though.
And there you go. See, you got both sides of the coin on that one, So you may, shit may hit the fan, but then another opportunity, but just don't roll over.
For sure.
And that's that whole, with this podcast, it's like, it's that mindset. It's that warrior mindset within us, just don't roll over. Every day, do something better, what I mean? And, look good in front of everybody. Just kind of finishing up here a little bit, I sometimes ask people, and it'd be a great question for you, especially as a young guy along the way, and you haven't been on this earth that long, but if you were to interview somebody, present or past, who would it be? And you can give me two if you wanted, but if but the idea, if there's one or two people along the way, like who would you go, man, I'd like to just have a conversation, a cup of coffee with or something.
Yeah, I'll definitely think of two, because the first one I was gonna be like, that's easy, Jesus. Like,
yeah,
what I mean? Like,
that one doesn't count, especially we both come from the same faith. I mean? Yeah, that one doesn't count because that would be no brainer.
Man, you said past or present?
Yeah, like human.
Past or present? Shoot. I don't know. There's a ton of different people, like, a ton of people with different upcomings. Maybe, I don't know, maybe like Sylvester Stallone.
And then, okay, we'll give you him, and you got to give me a reason. Okay, you don't have to give it to me yet, and then give me one more.
Okay.
Or we'll go guy and girl.
Oh, guy and girl.
See, then
that's tough. Man. All right. Well, I'll just give you the reason for Sylvester Stallone first.
Yeah.
The reason I choose him is because, like, obviously he wrote, the entire Rocky series. You know what I mean?
One of my favorite
awesome.
series too. Yeah.
But that's not the only reason. It's like, when he wrote that, you know, there was companies trying to buy it off of him. And, you know, he believed in himself. He was like, no, you know, like, I'm going to direct this and I'm going to star in it. You know what I mean? And he had to go through a bunch of bumps and kind of trials going through that. And, you know, he probably got, you know, 1,000 no's, but all it takes is one yes.
Before they took a script. I think it is true. Like,
exactly.
A lot of turndowns before he got it picked up on.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Which, you know, goes for everybody. You can get 1,000 no's, but as long as you get that one yes, that's all you need. So him definitely is one. And then for a girl, shoot. Man, I can't even.
I know I brought that up and I'm thinking in my head because if you asked me, I'm still thinking too, bro. I'm still thinking.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just off the top of my head, if I was just think right now, if you said a woman, like one of the people that I would want to chat with is Nancy Reagan. Ronald Reagan's, you know, obviously wife.
So why her?
Because she knew the ins and the outs of that dude every day. And I'm a huge fan of, you know, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Myself personally. And it was like, man, the guy was just the you know, the speeches the guy would give, and you know, and things like that is just crazy. And it's funny on a quick note with that. Ronald Reagan used to do. He's obviously in the movies, and he used to do radio. And going back to my chiropractic profession, he used to do a radio show in Davenport, Iowa.
Yeah,
you know, it was on BJ Palmer, one of the originators of the chiropractic profession in the 1800s, late 1800s. He had a radio show, you know, back then, and Ronald Reagan was on it when he was a young buck back in the day. But the guy, you know, became a movie star, you know, an actor, the governor, you know, president and whatnot. But I'd love to talk to Nancy Reagan on just some of the ins and outs that we don't know about him.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
For sure.
So now that you had a moment to think about that.
I did. I'd probably say probably like Serena Williams.
Okay.
Just because she's one of like the top in the game, and just seeing what her drive is, you know what I mean? What is it that drives her? You know, what does she do different outside of, you know, training and everything like that, like, you know, every professional athlete does and collegiate athlete and everything like that. But yeah, so I would have to say Serena Williams for sure.
And she's been at the pinnacle for so many years, you know what I mean? And working through that. And thanks for kind of like, you know, bringing that up because with this podcast, with that warrior mindset, we're going to bring on a bunch of women along the way that have become successful in their careers and had the trials and tribulations with them, whether it's, you know, a police officer, a woman that's, you know, got in her career, which, you know, you say it's a man's world, you know, for the most part, you know, being in that field for the most part. But I want to meet women like that are persevering. I mean, that's some armor, that's some grit. I want to meet women like that, you know, successful attorneys, successful doctors, you know, city councils, and you know, those are the type of people that I want to meet from a woman's point of view, to what has made them successful and how they've, you know, gone through the grind, and you know where they keep going back to when there's problems. Where's that foundation, that mindset that they go to? For sure. You know, so as these podcasts going on, we're going to kind of, you know, talk to the guests, and you know, we'll do man and woman now, right? As we're talking about it, because you know, they have so many crazy stories we could hear from, you know, both the men and women along the way too. Yeah. But, hey, listen, in closing, you know, I'd just like to thank you so much. You know, I want to try to bring on, you know, keep bringing on, you know, some more guests that are the young folks along the way that, you know, are persevering and grinding it out and wearing their you know, warrior armor and whatnot, and keeping that mindset strong. But, you know, my wish for you is to be as successful as you can. You know, keep going for your dreams, you know, your faith and your foundation. Maintain that, and then dig that deeper too, deep roots. And, you know, I'm just going to keep following your career, bro. Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? So it was a pleasure having you, you know, and we would like to thank, you know, Alec Trujillo for being here. We wish him the best of luck in his football career. Hopefully someday we'll see you in the NFL, and, you know, obviously probably doing bigger and better things. But, and so once again, this is Dr. Joe Martin from Warrior Mindset Podcast, and we look forward to hearing from you, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
We go.